Hello, everyone. This is Brian Germain, and this is Casual Chat. I have a guest with me who is a highly experienced jumper who's been doing this longer than me, believe it or not. Scott Borghese is a Canadian skydiver who's done all kinds of different things within this sport and is one of the head instructor types that you run into in Canada that has been helping sort of shape the sport and create safety from a very heartfelt approach. He really, as we say, suffers from a high level of give a shit.
Yeah.
So welcome, Scott.
Well, it's great to see you, first of all, and
Yeah, man.
see you looking healthy. And
Yeah, I
that's a
am.
good thing.
Yeah, not
Good
dead's
thing.
a good start.
We got to get you back up here to Skydive Burnaby so you can give us some more of your knowledge and excellent training.
I look forward to it. That's a really great drop zone. Mike and Tara have built just such a good vibe, and of course you're part of that as well. The facilities are top notch. The airplanes are great. The landing area is phenomenal. Doesn't get much better than that.
The view, the lake.
The view of the lake, right? And so which lake is that? I forgot. It's one of the great.
It's Lake Erie.
Erie.
Yeah, it's Lake Erie. We're on the south shores of Lake Erie. Wow, North Shores for you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we're 30 minutes down the road from Buffalo, basically. So we're Southern Ontario, North Shore of Lake Erie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a great place. I highly recommend everybody get there. It's just awesome. You won't want to leave. It's just such good vibes, nice people, no attitudes, and yet highly skilled and very knowledgeable people. Not the least of which, Scott, this guy right here. So so I wanted to, I mean, in some ways, because I just did that interview with Scott Miller, who obviously has a lot of experience teaching canopy flight, but you do too, right? I mean, you've been teaching people to fly parachutes for how long?
Well, do we include ground control in that?
Yeah, all of it.
Okay, I guess so. So before I started skydiving, I was kitting the Arrow and bringing back the C9s and the T10s, and then we evolved paracommanders for the students, which is a big step. And then in the mid 80s, early mid 80s, the Mantas. We all have those beautiful big parachutes, and it just continues.
Yeah. And of course, and you've got a lot of experience in traditional accuracy, or what some call precision, right?
Precision, classic accuracy, hitting the dot with the heel. Yeah. My mother and father too, but in those days it was the rounds. They were on the 68 Canadian team. And 60. My first team was 87, and I was at every world championship since, up until 2013.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And so, I mean, coming from an accuracy background, I'm sure that the state of the art in the sport has, it's probably a little bit cringeworthy watching patterns and, the speed that young jumpers are coming in. I'm sure for you, that's got to be an issue.
Yeah, well, my father liked to call them those nylon rockets, and he really didn't like it when I got one, a stiletto, back in '93. And so I like to fly fast as well. I like the slow flying accuracy parachutes, tandems. I do tandems, and I've jumped in 84 FX many years, 10 years of that, and back to the stiletto again. Sort of missed the speed of the FX, but having a lot of fun with the larger stiletto.
Yeah. No, that's the stilettos are still a very versatile parachute, isn't it? It's fairly well balanced as a design, is what I would call that.
Okay. Very much so.
And granted, by most people's standards, a little bit on the floaty side in terms of the recovery arc.
Yeah, it's a quick recovery arc.
But if you know that, you can work that.
Just know how to fly every parachute that we're jumping, right? And know that wing and what its capabilities are.
Yeah.
Which is where we're heading in the discussion. I called you, I think it was 5-6 weeks ago, said, Brian, you got to write an article on downsizing.
Yes.
Because
and I think that we should still put together an article, because there are still skydivers that read. That said, there's something great about a conversation, the back and forth around a topic that, let's face it, we're not going to be able to fit everything we discuss here in that article.
No.
right? So we can jam a whole lot of information in this, and just, some of it's just opinion, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it certainly is.
for both.
So,
But downsizing, I mean, it's one of those issues that, depending on where you stand, it's, kind of inflammatory, or other people feel like, well, all these downsizing charts are so restrictive. It's not fair. I do hear that a lot. It's like, I deserve, because I've done 7 canopy courses, and I ride motorcycles and all these other things. I deserve to downsize sooner than that guy over there.
hmm well, how much time was put in? Like when people say, come up to me, say, Scott, can I downsize?
Mhm.
My chin crashes into my chest and my brain is going, oh boy, I'm thinking about all these things. Like, how many jumps do they have? Not that it's everything, but what's the wing loading and what kind of skills are they doing under that parachute on the way down? Are they opening and just coming down the ground and landing anywhere in the field? That weighs differently in my mind. So there's all these
Yeah.
factors that they don't realize need to be addressed.
Right.
And my brain is scrambling for an answer. And the answer is, do you know what 3 words I hate the most? Can I downsize? And then it goes in, all right, let's get the chart out. Let's start there. What's your wing loading? That's a chart. Big Air Sports. It's in our parachutist information manual, PIM 2B, your charts. So find yourself on this chart. That's where we're going to start. And then let's see the log books. How many people log? Right? To the extent that they need to, a nice diary, reflection of the actual jump and every skill that you did, not only in free fall, but equally important, as you and Scott were discussing in the previous video that I watched, equally important is that can't be controlled.
Yeah. CC.
Yeah.
Right. And how do we measure it? To me, that's one of the conversations I felt like, we could have to sort of expand. I mean, Scott and I talked about a little bit of it, and it's an ongoing topic, isn't it? How do we measure whether somebody's competent under canopy and what they need to work on? Where would you start with that?
Well, there's first of all, they might not believe me because I'm the old guy in the drop zone. What do you know? Even though I can fly a parachute pretty good, fast, and
Yes,
things
you
slow and
can.
fast.
For the record, yes, you can.
Okay, and so what I like to do is say, well, here's the PD website, or here's an article from in the Parachutist magazine. I have binders in the classroom. Is the downsizing checklist? Can you do this, this, and this? USPA, and CSPA, Canadian Sport Parachute Association, they have a set of skills that they want us to attain. So they're doing really well, these organizations. But no matter how well we have something set up, we still have somebody who wants to skirt around it without even realizing they're skirting around it, How do we measure it is how much time have you spent in it? TI, time in. How much time do we spend under a parachute every jump? If we deploy at 3.5, we're open at 3. From 3 to 1,000, where we start the pattern and do our landing. So from 3 to 1,000, that's 2,000 feet. That's only 2 minutes of skill development time, barring spirals or going into deep breaks. Well, that's part of our necessary skill development, slow flight.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not a lot of time on every jump. So mind you, if you did a hop and pop at 10.5 and I'm in the saddle at 10 to 1,000, you've got 9 minutes of canopy time. So I wrote it down. I got a little checklist here.
Oh, nice.
And in 50 jumps, you've got about 1 hour and 40 minutes on your average canopy descent time of that skill time from opening to pattern entry, the beginning. 50 jumps of the hop and pop at 10.5, you're going to have about 7 hours and 30 minutes.
Nice. Big difference.
So what do we think about when they say, can I downsize? Well, what have you done under your parachute to warrant this? Did we do everything on the checklist? And most people haven't. One of the best things I ever had happen to me was when I was giving a canopy course in another country. They go by USPA. So we went through the whole section 5.1 or something, whatever it is in the Sims. And the theoretical, we went over it twice. He did those skills on the 5 jumps. I got him to open actually higher and do other skills up there, like practicing for premature break release and toggle lock and responding to that.
Mhm.
So after these jumps, and he was a fellow who said, can I downsize? Can I downsize? And I said, well, let's just do this first. So after this course, he came to me and said, you know what I learned? There's still more I need to know under this size parachute before I go smaller. Eureka, and that's what we
Success.
want to hear. It's their words. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Could you repeat that, and then record it?
Yeah. Everybody needs to
put it
hear
on
that.
a t-shirt.
So how do we get there?
Yeah.
How do we get them to understand this without them thinking you're taking away my fun?
Right.
Or some people got to learn the hard way, Scott, is what someone said to me. I thought, well, we're not taking away your fun. We want you to have more fun by being safe under that current parachute, getting all those skills, not just once, but on a few times, do that crosswind landing, the requirements for that, the downwind landings and so forth. But, and repeating it many, many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To be able to isolate skills that are vital, where you're going to have, sort of the normal pattern, but what about the abnormal situations? What about the situation where you have to make a relatively low turn? How do you do that? What's the skill set? And do you have that down enough that you can do it when you didn't plan on doing it? Right.
Exactly.
That's the big one where it's a surprise.
You don't want to learn the hard way. Some things we don't want to learn the hard way. If I'm in the military, you're not going to hand me a grenade and say, go learn about it.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Learn the hard way. No, that's life and death. Well, so is skydiving.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. To be able to come up with a list of exercises is certainly valuable, right? We have to send people down the path of here, go learn this. And at the same time, I think there also needs to be the individual recognizing that even that list is not exhaustive. And like you said, being able to get open high enough that you've got the time to do some stuff and then stop and chill for a moment, reduce your adrenaline level and have the epiphany that there's more to do. What about this one? What if I go like that? What happens if I grab the front risers and kind of sort of shake them? What does it do? When you look at an SIV course, right? So basically the paragliding process involves putting people up over water with a reserve canopy that's ready to go and doing things that torture the parachute. They really brutalize that paraglider in a methodical way so that you can prepare yourself for the stuff that's going to happen in a thermal, as you get thrashed. I think we need the equivalent of that, and it doesn't exist yet in the skydiving world.
Yeah. CSPA does have a pretty good skills grid going on now for both the A license and B license. And in Canada, we have endorsements. So for a solo certificate, which is where you did your student program and you've got 10 jumps and some requirements in canopy control, you're solo certified. And then comes the A license and then the B, C, D. So for every step along the way, there's a sport canopy review. If you've gone from A to B, there's a sport canopy review because you might be getting slightly smaller parachutes, new malfunctions because of it, elliptical wings, so forth. And so they've got a pretty good skills grid set up. And again, you can have the best skills grid available, but who is teaching that skills grid?
Yeah, exactly. I think a good teacher will talk about why each of those exercises are necessary.
The whys, exactly. As a child, what do they learn? Mom, dad, no, pretty early on. But early on, it's the why. Why? Why don't you learn a new word? Why? So we need to know whys. And we don't want
the purpose.
It's nice to be able to show videos of the whys.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
you don't want to, again, you don't want to learn the hard ways and see the whys, or
Yeah.
yourself experiencing the whys. You just have to believe this is why we care.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Yeah. Yeah. We get tired of seeing people get hurt. That's why, you know, and we,
Yeah,
in all these sort of repeated ways, right? I mean, there's so many accidents and or near misses where you go, oh crap, it's, you know, it's that one again.
it's the
Right?
reoccurring lessons.
Somebody
It's,
didn't learn the lesson. And I think we also have to look at us, the instructors, the coaches,
mhm,
for not giving people more to do under canopy, more reasons to, like you say, pop high and get their game face on and,
mhm.
you know, do different things with their parachute than the normal, right? The normal. A lot of people think of that as what canopy control is, but there's skill set that you're going to be sort of not using most of the time. And
Mhm.
once in a while, either you have that skill set or you're dead. You know, it's
Exactly.
one or the other.
For example, when I trained in classic accuracy, you've got vanilla skydives, perfect conditions, but sometimes the conditions are not perfect. And there you are in them. You
Mhm.
have to subdue your adrenaline, number one, right? As you most often profess, the relaxing, the breathing, and you have to overcome what is happening. An easy way to be able to do that is, for example, when I did paraski competition, we kind of have to go crosswind to it, sometimes even slightly downwind. So
Mhm.
I'd set up just in front of the pea gravel and do a little downwind crosswind landing and try and maintain my focus on the target. So one fellow who trains classic accuracy still here at this drop zone, I say to him, train the extreme so the rest is a dream.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're ready for the holy fudge factor moments. Someone cuts in front of you and you don't overreact. You go to brakes, you flat turn, you peel up,
Mhm.
you know?
Thank you for saying those letters. Because it's not taught enough. And I know there's a number of drop zones around the world where they don't teach rolling technique. And if they do teach it, it's minimal.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of some drop zones just immediately where they for years they're just their attitude was, well, we have, you know, ram air canopies, we don't need to teach PLFs, we teach them to stand up. And
Oh
that
my.
doesn't make it makes no sense to me, because you can't control the circumstances enough to guarantee they're going to get a soft landing. Question is, will they have the skill to hit the ground hard and dissipate that energy in sort of a round way that is not going to get them hurt? That's parachuting. You
Yeah.
need to be a parachutist, not only a, you know, ideal conditions wing flyer.
Yeah. It doesn't take a long time in the sport to sit back and watch junior canopy pilots coming down and seeing they're not directly in the wind. They flared hard and fast. They got to pop up and went over to the right.
Mhm.
Sure, they could have flew their feet to the ground, kept the hands level and all that, but are they ready for the PLF?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what about off drop zone landings and you're under your reserve? So always be ready for the PLF.
yeah, yeah. And there's, I am willing to bet that if you were to test the average instructor for, like, you know, real PLF, you know, back in the old days, you jump off of something that was, you know, more than a meter tall
Mm-hmm.
and just, you know, beat people up. It was the 5 gallon drum at my home drop zone at the beginning. And then we actually, you know, built a proper platform where we would go off forward and angular forward and straight sideways and
Right.
backwards sideways, you know, and then, you know, that's the one that would occasionally break people.
Yeah.
When they
Well,
reach out, you know what I mean? They don't keep their hands in, they reach out and their shoulder gets hurt or something.
you started around parachutes, no?
I did.
Well, there you go. You're backing up most of the time. We were backing up a lot of the times,
People
navigating.
still,
Now
they
you need to know how to do rear PLFs left and right.
Yep,
Yeah.
where you turn your feet, you know, it's just like if you're
Uh,
going straight forward, you angle your feet so that you can PLF, because if your toes are pointed where you're going, it's an FKF, right? A feet, knees, face, right? You got
never
it.
heard that one.
There's a little bit of an angle and you can go up the side of your body.
Yeah.
I mean, we know these ideas. The question is, do we have the skill down through repetition from actual physical training
Mhm.
to do this in the blink of an eye when you thought everything was going to be fine and your canopy was starved of lift because of turbulence in the last possible moment. You know, you were smiling for the camera, looking cool with your slider down and your chest strap wide, and the parachute says, sorry, I got nothing for you right now.
Yeah, you
That's
got mush in the hands, and here it is.
it happens. It happens. No amount of
Mhm.
airlocking is going to guarantee that you could avoid that. Right, so
Yeah, it's strange that some people don't want to train that. I've never trained in martial arts, but perhaps you're knowledgeable in this. Don't they teach you how to break a fall and roll before they throw you?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's yeah, one of the best places you can learn how to PLF and versions of the PLF is Aikido. In
Yeah.
an Aikido class, you start on the ground and then sort of, and somebody helps you down slowly so that you're, sort of pushing your knees to the side or wherever you're doing it wrong, and you
Yeah.
get it in slow motion. And that's how I was taught to teach PLFs. You stand
Yeah.
behind somebody with your hands in the armpits or something, and then
Hmm.
ease them down slow to every possible direction so they know how to twist. So they
Yep.
know to turn their upper body away from where they're rolling to, so you don't end up on your face and things. So that's a skill. Yeah,
It is.
we got to
And
bring
how
that
many
back.
we maybe had to do it in the first jump class, but how many times do we go back to the set of stairs or the drum and
Yep.
maintain that skill? It's
I
just,
urge people, safety days coming up. I don't know if you guys do it on the same date, but I challenge drop zones. If it's safety day to you, get people jumping off a picnic table or something like that, at least a chair,
yeah.
in different directions, and start off on the ground, especially if the person isn't highly skilled, so they can kind of, demonstrate, maybe film the PLFs so they can
Hmm.
see themselves, because you don't usually look as good as you think. And if you're really good at it, you look better than you thought.
There you go. Yeah.
It's worth doing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Now, so all right. So I mean, the discussion that we've been having, sort of ongoing and building it, is this downsizing thing, which
Hmm.
to me has to relate towards, an earned process. With it might not even be downsizing. It's like going to a more aggressive canopy. Could be elliptical in the same size.
Hmm.
Could be going to a ZP in the same size, and suddenly it gets more interesting. Uh, so the skills that come to mind to you as the most important ones to start with.
It has to be slow flight training, because if we're planning for the worst.
Yes.
So if you're landing off the drop zone, there's a small area. You might not have the ability to be full flight. You might have to go to breaks and do your S turns, the things you've learned in your bag of tricks for accuracy,
Mhm.
right? You need to land there, and that's your only choice.
It's
So
funny.
you might have, right?
I
So
was
you
just
might go ahead.
I was just gonna just get hone in on that because you said S turns, and a lot of people are gonna have a trigger moment, because
Right.
the Pavlovian response, S turn bad.
Right. Don't train S turns in the pattern. But in small print, they say may be useful off the drop zone. So I say, you see this right here? Yeah, you got to know what way to drive on the one-way street, right?
Yeah.
Well, for those high hop and pops where you're absolute last one down, or even better yet,
Mhm.
the 5 grand ones and the rest of the load is going up and you're the only parachute in the sky, that's when we can train. Okay, we're going to train setting up too close.
Yep.
Okay, and what are we going to do about it? And the S turns, the figure eights, the hourglass, coming back over the same spot but lower, and then come on in.
Mhm.
The USPA has the braked approach and landing.
Mhm.
You're coming in with brakes, and then you flare from there
Mhm.
for good reason. Okay, we can apply that off drop zone landings where it's a small target, a small area,
Mhm.
and you might not have the space in front of you to let it up and bring it down. So you want to start training that skill at the low jump numbers in the USPA. It's in the A license requirement, right?
Yep.
And then when you know that parachute, can you do the same thing on the next parachute and the next parachute and the next parachute? And if you like to go really fast, there might be a parachute size where that's not available. But even that,
It'll
I've,
work. I mean,
exactly. You've done it. I've done it. I've
yeah.
seen people do it where they go,
This,
Boom, they go to brakes.
uh-huh.
The mayhem goes down there. Too
Mhm.
much action breaks, and okay, I've never done this before. And he goes like this, and then he goes like this, and wasn't that surprising to him that that little cross brace parachute allowed for that soft landing?
Mhm.
So knowing the wing,
Yep.
and back to the slow flight,
Yeah. That's
flat turn, brake turn,
mhm.
super important.
Right. Not
Um,
pushing the low one, lifting the high one. I don't know if you do this too. Something I picked up from jumping the big slow parachutes, vertical approaches, is I don't just lift my outside hand to make a brake turn. I smoothly oscillate it.
oh, you do?
And I
Huh?
find that it doesn't allow the nose to drop on smaller, faster
Okay.
parachutes in particular. Big ones, you might be able to get away with that because it's not going to instantly nose down. But
Yeah.
as you get to the smaller ones, just a little bit of loss of drag on the wing, and she's pointed nose down. So this oscillation on the outboard,
Okay. Okay.
just
Yeah.
interesting idea to let people sort of explore the differences, and obviously this one can result in stalling the low wing.
Yeah. Well, my classic wing and with a tandem and even my smaller wings, we have traditionally two ways to do a brake turn, right? Lift one or lower one.
Yeah.
And then I like the a little up, a little down method, which we use a lot in classic accuracy. And again, I apply that in my tandem jumps when I need to land beside the cameraman or put it down right there. And
Mhm.
you might have to do a little bit of this. You might have to be able to come in with a little bit of sink and then the surge and come in and land.
Yep.
And it goes right back to the slow flight.
Absolutely. Not being afraid of it. But a lot of
Exactly.
folks are. They're afraid to stall. They're afraid that the surge is going to be too aggressive. They don't know how high above the ground they need to release it into a bit more airspeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, how would you teach that aspect of it? If they're worried about coming off the brakes in order to flare, what do you give them a number, or do you give them a process to evaluate?
Uh, well, confront your fears and go find that stall point.
Yeah.
There's two different ways to get to the stall point. You can flare all the way down, let it pop up, and then away she goes. Or you can I like to face into the wind, bring it down slow, slow, slow. And when you feel that stall point, where is it? What is the sensations? What's it feel like? What's it sound like?
Mhm.
And what is the recovery time? How much is enough to recover flat, but not dive?
Yep.
And you can count it out
Yep.
and do it repeatedly and count it out. Now you get a perception of time because 5 seconds off the ground is approximately on average 100 feet up. So, yeah, so you definitely want to be out of a braked close to a stall sign, even above that. So, and realizing that certain wind conditions can affect your
Mhm.
that wing and
Especially bumpy. To me, that's the biggest concern is, coming off really aggressively when it's really bad air. Yeah, you can
and
have a full frontal. you know.
yeah, or else it'll stay in the dive a little extra long, and you're going, oh shucks, oh shucks, oh shucks, and you're getting your
Yeah.
hands back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the more important skills, in my opinion, to
right
keep
there.
people out of trouble is the small nudge. You know,
Oh,
whether it's a surge, from lifting your hands, or a surge that's caused by turbulence, or essentially a pitch surge caused by an aggressive turn,
hmm,
and then the ground is coming. You're in the turn and the ground is coming. Well, you got to stop that ground from coming. The short burst of downward energy with some aggression. We're taught to be gentle with everything under canopy. And yet there's a time to shove, 3 to 6 inches of downward motion abruptly to save your own life.
absolutely. There is one day I'm walking to the loading area with a student, and the wind's coming over from the east. It's a subtle wind, and the tree line is pretty far upwind. And this person's coming in, regular flight, and suddenly her canopy just kind of goes boom.
Oh yeah.
And then you can see, and she's got perfect poise in the saddle. The feet and knees are together, always ready for a PLF. it stops you from reaching for the ground off level wing landings, right? Feet knees together, stationary, solid in the saddle. But here she comes, and the parachute dives and surges, and she just goes boom, right down to the hair, and it recovers, snap, and she just lets it saddle out and finishes the flare. And I wish I had that on video because everyone needs to see that. I describe it
Yeah.
to the students, to the juniors, to the people. If you ever feel this sensation like you're going to drop out and your brain was thinking about flaring, that means get it down to at least the ribs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, regardless of where your hands are, to deepen it, sharpen until you feel the canopy move over your head and a little behind you and the weight increase again, right? Because that's the indication of the surge is the weight loss. You may not notice the pitch change that comes with it. You might not be aware of that as a young jumper. Where you can see the canopy coming in from a frontal profile, you see just nose, and then all of a sudden you see a lot of top skin.
Yeah.
There, so the canopy is going to be in a dive. That little pounce on the brakes will save your life.
And the sensation you just spoke about, where are we going to learn that? On those hop and pops.
On
And
those
by doing that.
Yeah, hold the brakes and then let them up.
Yeah.
Whoa, lighten the loafers. Okay, well, next time I'm going to let it up and then stop it from surging. I'm going to put myself in line slack and then get that line tension back. Oh, that should be on every canopy proficiency card. It's a little hard,
you know what?
dive, but dive arrest. And then you do that in a turn. I'm in a turn, I'm descending. I might have line tension in that turn, but the ground's coming. First pitch and then fix the roll later. That's the way.
That's now added to my program. Dive arrest. That's a new one for canopy skills. Yep. I like them to pull high, 8 grand, weather condition. Oh, okay, no clouds, very little clouds, very little winds. And so they can focus on these outside skills that might not be on somebody's skills grid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are all the things that we got to put in the category of should I downsize or not? Well, did you do that?
Yeah.
Did you learn how to evaluate your brake line length and tune that in little by little over the course of many jumps so that your brake lines are exactly the length you want?
Yeah.
Most people don't know how to quantify that stuff. So I think that's also very, very important to tweak the canopy you have, so that it fits with your arm length, your riser length.
I understand they want to downsize because they might be buying their first rig and they're thinking, you know what, if I get something just a little bit smaller, it'll last me longer. And this one is kind of a little bit on the large size. Well, some people say, well, what's the difference between a 1.0 and a 1.2? To the inexperienced, it's 0.2. To the experienced, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so trying to educate in this is the challenge, because there might be some coaches or instructors who don't have the experience and background that you do or I do. Round parachutes, slow, big, square parachutes. The smallest thing we could jump was probably 200 square feet in the early 80s, right? Even late 80s. Well, the Sabre came around, right? So, and we had no other choices, and that was all good because it was pretty small.
Yeah.
And we benefit for it. For example, we had one tandem instructor here. He had just gotten his rating. He wasn't handling the medium kind of winds so well, and he would drift off. And the owners were like, well, maybe he's not cut up for tandems. And I said, give me 5 jumps with him. So I said, hey, go and jump my 282 square foot accuracy parachute. Go jump my parafoil. I want you to say
that's a parafoil. Yeah, 282, 252 as well, right?
Exactly. And go land that in the middle of the piece.
Yeah.
And he did. And he's a smaller type person, right? So it's a big kind of a parachute. He's used to jumping a cross brace, a tiny little thing. So after that, those 5 jumps, landing in the P's are pretty darn close on a couple of them. And the other ones were in the center. He excelled in large parachutes. Nice. Sometimes the speedboat on the current, the water, the current, doesn't know much about the current, but the leaf does.
I like that.
And we need to think about that a little bit more as coaches and instructors and guide them to this. But we might have some newer generation coaches and instructors that didn't have the benefit of reading in the manuals, or when I get my Parachutes magazine, the first place I go, other than the beautiful cover, is right to the back
Mhm.
and look at the incident reports,
Yeah.
because I need to be updated, and there might be something new
Yep.
that I can show somebody. Here's somebody got hurt or worse, and how we can hopefully avoid that from happening with you.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's no meaning to that accident.
So I have a binder of black incident reports, the black book, and there's incident report, incident report.
Yeah.
And so when they read these things, they find out, it's mostly pilot error.
Mhm.
And the newer coaches and instructors, they don't have these stories
Yep.
and this personal experience and that. And maybe they were at a drop zone that didn't pay attention and pull in the reins of the students that want to buy their first rig, or even the A or B license jumper that want to go too small, too fast.
Yep.
So they might be guiding that newcomer to a parachute that is really too small for them,
Yep.
without really realizing what they're doing. So how do we educate
Yep.
the old instructors and the newer instructors in this? Where do we go with this? We have standardization meetings
Sure. Yeah, that's a
for
good point.
examiners,
Mhm.
in USPA. Wouldn't it be great if we had just every coach and instructor who wanted to tune in, we have a similar sort of setup?
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
let's get on the same page.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to get everybody that runs canopy courses of all kinds to get them together and talk about just, things that seem to be deeply valuable because accidents result in people not knowing how to do that kind of a thing, and then get them to jump 170s, 190s, 210s, and make those canopies look good in every way, to prove that
Yeah,
they understand how to do that. It's a Petra does not prepare you to teach a guy with 42 jumps.
exactly. You got to remember what it's like to jump those slow parachutes in order to be able to teach it, right?
Yeah, yeah. To come in full speed, also to come in slower. All of those
Yeah.
skills. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
And that you're sort of showing that newcomer, the student, the novice, you're showing them, wow, they can still have a lot of fun with that size parachute.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? What is fun under canopy? Well, I want to downsize so I have more fun. Fun's an attitude and it's a sliding scale. And
Yeah.
so therefore you can have fun jumping a tandem solo.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And you want to have some adrenaline, jump a tandem solo when there's some wind.
Now you know what round
Right?
parachutes.
Now you know a little bit more about, yeah, exactly. And so to me, I think it's very important to recognize that we're capable of having a positive emotional experience regardless of what's over our head. And if we make reasonable decisions about that, when we're landing off, when we're in the sketchy deal, we've got a little more wiggle room where we can get away with mistakes and unconsidered possibilities. Yeah.
Ready to take something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ready for that oh the pucker factor moment. You
Yeah,
didn't see it coming, and maybe nobody told you that it could happen,
exactly.
right? And that's what all this stuff is preparing you for when you are not the full you know what I mean? When everything's nice and easy and it's your parachute. What did you call it? A vanilla
Vanilla,
conditions where it's all
yeah,
and the emotional experience of it and the way that you fly, all that stuff is great. I'm glad that 99% of your jumps are that. It's what about the 1%, where the sky is in a
connection.
bad mood? Do you let that into you, or do you immediately have a go-to set of procedures?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, train the extreme.
Train for
Mhm.
the extreme as well. Yeah, exactly. So that was it. So that normal
And
is a big.
I'm sorry?
I want to remember that. That was a good quote.
Oh, train the extreme, so the rest is a dream.
It's good. Nice. It's an awesome message. Right on. Cool. I don't want to keep you too long. I know that you've got lots of stuff that you want to be doing. But I think it's important. You're one of those people that I've always respected and admired because of your latitude as a canopy flight instructor and as sort of a general skydiving instructor. You've got a unique angle on it. Most of the guys that can swoop the campfire like you do, they also have no knowledge of how to come in slow and steep. Nothing, no experience. So you've got that. And
We try. Always try to think that I don't know too much, so that I'm always looking to learn. My water cannot turn green. I always need to put the aeration into it. Don't get stagnant.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that the humbleness of setting the bar just a little bit higher outside of what you normally do, get out of that comfort zone, right? And do things that make you go, ooh, just a little.
Yeah.
Just a little,
Yeah.
not too much. Yeah.
Yeah, like those the reverse turns is one of them, right? Whoa, 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 almost got in the line twist there. Nice to know. Yep. Why is that on the skills grid? Because we didn't have these skills grids when we started to jump these newer type parachutes, and we put ourselves in the line twist at too low of an altitude. Did that. Been there, did that.
We had a lot of those. The early days of the Jonathans. That was very common before the stiletto. It was terrifying, and it made us back down the elliptical taper of the wing. We actually reduced the ellipticalness. Not that that's a real word, but and that helped a little bit. But the bottom line is people got to know how to stay in connection with the wing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to stay with it no matter what's going on, even when you're forcing it to do aggressive things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. I still love teaching canopy flight. I'm sure that you're the same way. It's like,
well, I do, and I can see that you love to teach it every time you're here. That's hats off to you for being one of those guys who spent all that time in the classroom and out there in the field with the video, because that is crucial to the learning, is the video, because we got to see it to believe it.
These things.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. For $200, you can gather the information that is most valuable. And if you film the PLFs, you film the high speed approaches, you film the low speed approaches, you film the pattern that got you to the flare, and then figure out what you can do better. Because there's a better version of every skydiver hanging out there. It's just you gotta reach for it. Otherwise, it doesn't come to you. You just become the same old stagnant jumper you've always been.
Exactly. And what helps you get better is the logging. Setting a goal out. What am I going to learn under parachute this jump? Let's go do it. Let's sit down. Let's reflect. Let's take some notes in my logbook, because you might reach a level, a plateau, and then you're not going, how did I do that before? And you page back a few pages, and that's the trick. That's what I told myself. Yep. So the logging, and safe landings are awesome, but safe and accurate are better. You spoke about that in your video with Scott Miller. So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Gotta land where you plan, and you gotta get there with a minimum number of turns, ideally. And at the same time, know what to do at each phase of the approach where things aren't looking quite right. How do you fix that?
Yeah.
Big old, toolbox.
Exactly. Changing your target locations so you don't have the same site picture all the time. So now maybe you're ready to land off the drop zone with that different site picture.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it's vital. It's vital. But that's if people do follow these ideas and hold the preconceived notion that you got to downsize at a certain time, if you keep that in your mind and not rush through the downsizing and enjoy your big slow parachute, take some pride in the fact that you had the discipline to not rush into a tiny canopy, and there's no reason why you can't be, a skydiver at 80 still jumping, or like Pat Moorhead, where did he do 9 jumps on his 90th birthday? That'd
tucker me out at this age, never mind 90.
But yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, is for everybody to just put their priorities in the right places, so that they're not trying to prove anything to anybody, except for maybe look how wise I am.
Well, there's a perfect example of that in the latest Parachutist magazine. Was it the March issue? And the incident reports, no fatalities, but it was regarding wing loading. The two incidents: too high a wing loading for too little numbers, too little experience.
Yeah.
Go to a letter in the beginning, and this guy talks about getting out of the student program and upsizing, and almost being teased at his drop zone about jumping that big parachute. So he had to come up with things like, wow, I like the parachute and I want more time under the parachute to look at the world, So good on him, kudos to him, realizing that. And he does state in his letter that he's kind of pressured by certain instructors and coaches. Yeah, that's kind of big for you. I'm being told that, you're underloading that. We all students jump 288 square foot F-111 Mantis, no matter what size they were. Smaller you were, you couldn't jump in some of the stronger ones as the big 250-pound guy.
True.
But again, you're the leaf on the water and you knew more about the current because of it.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Is there really such a thing as underloading? I mean, 0.1, I mean, maybe that would be too light, but you watch my kids flying at 0.5.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So my older one is, 0.6. They do fine. It's not like they're taking more collapses or something like that. They have the flare capability. It's just you reduce your airspeed a little bit. You reduce, therefore, your ground speed a little bit, which means you have to alter, the spot has to be further out. You've got to move your pattern entry point a little bit further out. You got to make your turn to base leg a little earlier. But as long as you understand the rules, people hit dead centers on rounds.
Yep, I did.
Yeah, I never did. I was not so good. I mean, that was the downwind accuracy thing. It didn't really, it hadn't come to my drop zone. Yeah, so people.
I only did one of those, and I wasn't wearing gloves at the time. And when I downwind through the P's, I went, now I understand why you guys are wearing gloves. So ever since that day, I've always worn gloves. Even when I'm jumping in very hot places, I'm wearing gloves. It's protection. Yeah, but yeah, fun stuff.
That does make sense. It does make sense. So, all right. So, is there a last, sort of words of wisdom that you would pass on to the jumpers of the world from your perspective?
It's just going to be a repeat what we've already heard. Go slow. Learn that wing, make it sing, and it'll bring you back to more smiles. Because without safety, we have no smiles. We have tears. And please try and understand that your coaches and instructors who are trying to get you to stay at that wing size, they do care about you and they don't want you to learn the hard way. And it'll come. And you can have fun with any size parachute.
Exactly. Yeah. Fun is not a wing loading, it's a state of mind.
There you go. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Scott. I'm really glad that you swung by and gave us a little bit of your time. And hopefully people will swing by Scott at Burnaby, one of my favorite drop zones in the world, and pay a visit.
Thank you, Brian. Good to see you again and again, healthy. And I hope you do swing by this summer.
I hope so too. All right. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Take care.